Hello and welcome. Today we will be discussing the partnership between Greenshades Software and Bullhorn One. Specifically, we will be talking about the role that Greenshades plays when it comes to paying workers through Bullhorn with the full Payroll and HR module that is integrated directly with Bullhorn One. So before we take a deeper look at the integration and the product demonstration, just a brief note that Greenshades Software is pleased to have been working in the staffing industry for the last 20 plus years, and we have more than 600 staffing clients today. So it was a very clear fit for us when we first met with the Bullhorn team about being the payroll add-on for Bullhorn One to allow you to manage your contingent workforce and your internal staff end to end from hire to retire. Now, big picture, we're going to spend primarily most of our time today talking about the Greenshades payroll component, but just to kind of orient ourselves with what we will be seeing today. On the kind of left side of the dotted lines here, we're looking at the Bullhorn One workflow. So this should look fairly familiar to you if you're using Bullhorn One today. The idea of managing your jobs and your clients and your candidate profiles all within Bullhorn One, submitting those candidates to job placements, collecting those workers' time, and then ultimately getting those workers paid. So as candidates and employees are added to the Bullhorn One application, that data is going to seamlessly flow into the Greenshades Online application automatically. There's no manual clicks or anything that you need to do to make that happen. That is a seamless integration, and that data will flow automatically. Additionally, as those workers are paid, specifically as we are collecting time from our workers through the variety of means that we can collect time through Bullhorn One, or if we're even just creating manual transactions, all of those payable charges that are going to be added within Bullhorn One will flow directly into the payroll application from Greenshades. After payroll is processed and those workers are getting paid, data is then sent back into Bullhorn One to allow for the full billing and gross margin reporting that, of course, is so important to staffing organizations. All right, so what we're looking at here is one of our candidates, Jim Halpert, that has been assigned and placed to a role as a CNC machinist at their Ohio work location. So I mentioned earlier that as candidates are added into Bullhorn One, that data is seamlessly flowing to Greenshades Online, which we'll be taking a look at here in just a moment. So all of these applicable candidate details are going to flow over directly into Greenshades, and then as we go through the process of creating these payable charges, again, those charges are going to automatically be loaded into the appropriate pay run or payroll batch within Greenshades software. So as I navigate here to Greenshades Online, this is the administrator page, the employer portal. So anybody in your organization that, be it payroll, HR professional, finance, whoever needs to have access to this information can be added as an administrator. And this is where we can come and manage our workforce. Now, primarily today, we're going to be focused on our contingent workforce and primarily, again, focused on getting those workers paid. But keep in mind, if you have internal staff that's managed outside of Bullhorn One that you also want to process through Greenshades, that is certainly an option. And there's a full payroll and HR platform that's available from Greenshades to help manage those workers hire to retire without those workers actually needing to go through Bullhorn One. All right, so I'm going to pull up the worker here. Jim Halpert was the employee that we were taking a look at just a minute ago over in Bullhorn One. I can find this worker right here, and I'll go ahead and pull this individual up. Again, keep in mind, I did not have to, onboard this worker through Greenshades. All of the onboarding continues to happen in Bullhorn One, but the applicable, most appropriate information is going to flow into Greenshades automatically so that we can ultimately help get this worker paid. So within the employee profile here, we see relevant information related to this employee, some personal and employment details here. I can go into their personnel file here and take a look at information such as their name and their social security number and birth date and mailing address. All of these things are flowing directly from Bullhorn One. Now, in addition to paying these workers through Greenshades, Greenshades is also managing the payroll taxes. So that includes automatically assigning the appropriate tax codes to the appropriate employee based on their home address, work address, both when we're thinking about federal taxes, state taxes, and local taxes. All of those taxes are going to be automatically managed by Greenshades, both the tax rates and the assignment of those taxes. So, as we can jump in here and take a look at our tax parameters for this employee, we can see all of the active taxes that are on file for this worker. Now, depending on the entire employee profile and what their history is here, we may have ultimately only had them work at one work location. So we're just going to have our federal and state tax information and maybe some local tax codes. But if this is a worker that regularly works at multiple job sites across multiple tax jurisdictions, all of those taxes will equally be managed by Greenshades. So, for example, in a single payroll batch, in a single check for this worker, if that worker works across multiple county lines, for example, they have multiple locations that they're working in, this employee can have different taxes assigned to those different transactions within the same pay period, so that all of those taxes, even local taxes, will automatically be managed. Again, both the tax rates and the actual assignment of those taxes. Now, again, we're thinking a lot about getting these workers paid. So when we're thinking about pay rates and earning codes, the appropriate information is going to be structured here. So we could see, if we jump back into Bullhorn One, as I'm sure you most likely already know, within Bullhorn One we can have our full billing profile set up for this worker. And in our environments, we have this worker set up to be making $18 an hour. I think the bill rate is actually $25 per hour, but that pay rate is what's going to impact the employee's rate of pay here. And we can have these hourly codes automatically structured here. We can also have our benefits and deductions that are managed here. So in this example, we have health insurance, but this also can include wage garnishments. So be it child support or federal tax levy or student loan, whatever it is that this worker might be dealing with, those orders can be created and assigned to the worker directly in Greenshades. And once those orders are live, during the pay run, Greenshades is going to be automatically calculating those disposable earnings for that worker to ensure that the maximum amount is taken out of that employee's paycheck within the law, to ensure that their take-home pay is protected, but to maximize those garnishment payouts. And when there are multiple orders that are in place for the same worker, those orders will be prioritized based on the federal and state laws. And then if we have, for example, multiple child support orders assigned to the same employee, that those orders are going to be prorated, again, following those appropriate rules. So when it comes to compliance, Greenshades is right up front, not only on the taxes, but also when we're thinking about garnishments, which are quite challenging to manage, especially when we have lower wage workers that are working multiple work sites, and there's a variety of things that need to be accounted for, both on the tax side and with those disposable earnings calculation. All of that can be managed through Greenshades. So to talk through how to actually get this employee paid, we have a couple of options. So the candidate details are going to flow automatically into Greenshades. The other thing that's going to be flowing into Greenshades are the payable charges. So as we come in here and we need to pay this worker, we have a couple different ways to do this. We can come into this screen right here and add these payable charges and then mark those as ready to pay. Once they are marked as ready to pay, that data is going to flow directly into the appropriate Greenshades pay run. Additionally, from the worker profile here, I can come in here and set up my payable charge here. So just as an example, I already have a couple of payable charges in here. This one here is from a prior pay period, but this is from my current pay period right here, pay period end date of 3/12. So I can come in here and I can see, okay, we already have one transaction here. Let's just keep it simple. Let's say we have one more that we need to add for this worker, 8 hours, and of course the bill rates. And keep in mind, we have a lot of information that we can collect here. Some of it's required, some of it is optional. Within the Greenshades profiles, we can have defaults set in place for this worker. So if this data is supplied here, it will essentially override those defaults, and that's what will apply on the pay run. Alternatively, if we leave these blank, we're just going to go with those defaults assigned to the employee. So I will click Save, and as we can see, if I navigate back in here again to this transaction, we can see my details, and we see we've got a gross pay amount of $288. All right, so the synchronization between Greenshades and Bullhorn, again, automatic. That synchronization occurs without you doing anything. So we have the ability to now navigate into Payroll, and the pay run is going to be created for us automatically. Now we have a few different payroll batches that are already in progress here. Specifically, the CNC batch is what I'm going to be working with. Ultimately, you can structure this however you want. You can have as many payroll batches as you need. Some clients manage this by work location, some management by client. Ultimately, it just depends on what you're most comfortable with. But we'll come in here and we will take a look at this payroll batch that is now in progress and has hours loaded for Jim Halpert. For the sake of simplicity, I only have one employee in this payroll batch. Realistically, if you're only paying one employee, you can certainly structure it this way, but you may have thousands of employees that are in a single payroll batch. That's all completely flexible and something that we will, of course, work with you on throughout the implementation process. As a reminder, gross pay here, the $18 per hour, 16 hours for a gross pay of $288 aligns with what we have here in our total. So jumping back into my pay run, now I can continue on. Now you'll note here we have client ID and project. These are what we call custom fields. Certainly the billing side of things, that client information is going to be very important, but we have flexibility there. If there's additional information that we want to track on those pay runs and apply, we absolutely can do so. Now, because I have active insurance plans that are set up for this employee already, those will automatically apply to the pay run. So we'll have our deduction that will be set up right here. Again, had I actually set up a garnishment wage order for this worker, again, be it child support or whatever it may have been, that would have been automatically applied to this pay run. So again, I only have the one deduction code set up. So that's why we can see right here, okay, we have a fixed amount and we have our total deductions that are going to be taken out right here. Now you'll see in a moment why that difference. We have a fixed amount of $577, but we have a total deduction amount of $1077. And that's actually, in fact, because this worker is in arrears. So that'll be clearer here in just a moment. Now, employer benefits, same concept. Again, be it health insurance, could be union fees on the deduction side, but any kind of employer benefit that needs to be on the employee's paycheck, that will automatically be loaded. If I need to override any of these amounts, of course, I can edit that. I can edit any of this information that I see fit. Now, again, going back to that deduction amount, we had $5 and change set up as the deduction amount, but that employee had a $5 arrears balance. So this could have been because the worker in a prior period maybe was short on hours that period. The client didn't have as much expected. And so therefore, in that kind of scenario, what we're looking at simply here is that arrearage is going to build up on the account and it's going to then be automatically applied to a future pay run as we're seeing right here. So this is all done automatically for us. Again, that's certainly optional. You can choose not to track those arrears if you prefer. Now, we've gone through this 6-step process of getting this worker paid. We have the opportunity to review, again, only one employee on this pay run, so we're not, the summary information up here is not too applicable, but again, you could have hundreds, if not thousands of workers loaded into this payroll batch, and we have this nice search filter here to find exactly who it is that you're looking for prior to committing to this pay run. We can also come in and view the detailed breakdown so we can see essentially a preview of what this employee's paycheck is going to look like before we commit this pay run. Now, once we are ready to move forward, we can go ahead and submit. So post payroll, this information is going to feed automatically back into Bullhorn so we can, again, ensure that we can do the appropriate billing and gross margin reporting out of Bullhorn. We can come down here and we can see our most recent pay runs right here. Here's one that I recently completed. We have the ability to view this here. We can make adjustments here if we need to do so. We can also make those adjustments in Bullhorn. So if, for example, we overpaid an employee and needed to reduce their next paycheck, we can simply do a negative transaction in Bullhorn One, that'll flow through, or we can use the adjustment workflow here within Greenshades. So again, you can have as many payroll batches as you want. So if we're wanting to come in here and kind of manually kick off a payroll, we can specify which payroll batch we want to process next. All of these schedules are structured and automated, so that way it's very simple to know which pay run you have coming due next. And again, we have our high-level summary information here, a lot of robust calculators that are available, gross up calculators, things of that sort. And of course, you see 941s and W-2s down here and 1095Cs. So keep in mind, in addition to actually, of course, processing the payroll and ensuring that the appropriate taxes are assigned to that employee, Greenshades is also going to be managing the payroll tax reporting, both the submission of those tax returns to the appropriate tax jurisdictions, as well as ensuring those tax deposits are issued. So we can see here we have our upcoming files and returns and payments. And so we can submit our files from here. We can submit our payments here. You have full control over all of this. So the due dates are all calculated by Greenshades based on the jurisdiction requirements. And we're simply coming in here, reviewing this information, and then clicking submit. And then of course, all of our historical data is going to be down here and available for us to review at any time. And of course, in addition to sending the payroll details back into Bullhorn One, we also have our full pay history information available here within pay history. So we can find a PDF copy of the paper check or direct deposit stub that we want to track down at any point. On the tax side, additionally, haven't really touched on it yet, but the annual taxes are all managed through Greenshades as well, including W-2s, as well as 1095C forms for the Affordable Care Act compliance. So you can choose to use Greenshades for managing your Affordable Care Act compliance, and Greenshades will automatically produce those 1095C forms for you using the appropriate monthly codes following those IRS guidelines. And then, of course, beyond taxes, of course, full reporting capabilities that are available within Greenshades. We can have different favorite reports that we have structured here. We can create custom reports. We have full data exports that are available where you can literally just kind of select a chunk of data to extract from the system. A tremendous amount of flexibility that's available here. Now, just navigating back to the employee list before we wrap up, one thing to note, again, touched on it briefly, but within our organization, we are primarily focused on the contingent workforce today in this conversation. But for your internal teams, including the folks that are not actually, those workers not managed within Bullhorn One, our full-time employees, our permanent staff, you can choose to use Greenshades Payroll and HR platform for those workers as well, including new hire onboarding, all the way from hire to retire, time and attendance, benefits enrollment, including open enrollments, new hire enrollment, qualifying life events, all of that, expense reports, employee evaluations. There's a very robust capabilities that are here, a very large amount of information that's available to you and options that are available for you to take advantage of should you choose to do so. All right, so today, as a recap, we covered the workflows here within Greenshades Payroll and Bullhorn One. We discussed the process of these candidate profiles synchronizing over to Greenshades automatically as those candidates are placed into roles and jobs. All that data feeds over. all of that time, the billable information, the payable information that we're loading into Bullhorn One, all that feeds into Greenshades Payroll automatically. We can get those workers paid, and then the appropriate necessary information is fed back into Bullhorn One, completing that cycle so the full billing and gross margin reporting is fully capable to be completed through Bullhorn One. And with that, I hope this information was helpful. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to us at bullhorn@greenshades.com. We'd be happy to do a personalized demonstration where we can talk about your specific needs in more detail, or you can check us out on the bullhorn.com website or the greenshades.com website. Thanks so much for your time.